Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deserto's The Jungle. It's your boy dGon, joined by Monty and the IWDominate here to bring you your dose of the global League of Legends competitive scene. Because we had a lot of action across multiple different regions. We had the LPL Classico with RNG, EDG. We'll dive into SKTs, or I guess wait, is it SKT? It's just T1. I don't know why I just brain farted there. T1's dominance because they were tying a previous record of theirs in terms of Series 1 and undefeated. Here in the LCS, TSM got a win. That's something that I'm sure a bunch of fans want to hear about for a little bit. And then LEC, of course,
I really am excited about the worst team in the worst major region getting a win, because I could literally talk about any other game in those regions and it would be more interesting. But go ahead.
Oh, really? Really? You don't find watching TSM lose interesting? Like, it's literally one of my favorite parts of the week. I have a take that I think that TSM being so dogshit will be good for the region and good for viewership.
How is that? How's that
watching them lose?
Oh, I simply just get way more viewers watching them lose. Like everyone in chat is so excited for TSM games because it's so hilarious to watch them lose. So I think it's actually a good thing. Like, if you can't be a great region and compete, why not just be the heel of the competitive League of Legends scene as a whole?
Because heels generally have a chance to win, right? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, technically they have a chance. Like, they won a game, but like, that's rough.
The appeal of the heel is that they can win,
Right.
They have a chance to be the champion that you love to hate, right? This is more just Schadenfreude, where we just laugh at them while they get mercilessly beaten into the ground.
Except against Golden Guardians, which is where they got their win this
which
week.
Is one of the top teams in North America, 5-5 record at a point. 5-4 going into the week. Holy shit, they're insane.
Yeah. Golden Guardians losing 2 in a row. Let's start here in the LCS, where we had our matches. The last time we're going to be playing here on 12.4. Next week they moved to patch 12.5. We had a couple of marquee matchups with TL 100 Thieves playing against each other, C9 versus Evil Geniuses getting their games in as well, and a pretty exciting match with TL Immortals, and I saw that Monty, you had revenge on Summoning Insight, where I'm not sure if he dished any information about that one, but that was a match where it looked like TL got a little loose. The Shyvana came out. Yeah,
he was pretty sad about how that went, which I think is understandable. Like, Immortals, they should have won the TSM game. They probably should have won this game. I think it's tough to be Immortals right now, but at the same time, like, they do make a lot of overextensions or kind of fail engage, and then, like, instead of walking away from a fight where they have some pretty significant abilities on cooldowns, they'll like continue to over pursue it, and they've had different issues. I think in the TSM game it was because they didn't push their advantage hard enough, and in this game I feel like that decision then affected this game because they were over eager to end the game when they basically could have just walked away and done Elder or Baron or them both basically for free and then repushed had they been a little bit more patient. So it just seems like they get frazzled in some of these late game shot calling situations. And, you'd think that occasionally they would make the right call, like accidentally, but they just... No, seriously, like
getting every coin flip wrong.
Yeah, that seems like that's what's happening, which is, I think, a bit unlucky.
Dom, what'd you make of these last couple of Immortals games here?
Well, I think PoE needs to be sat in a room and forced to do math quizzes just over and over again until we start getting somewhere with like these builds, because like I like a lot of the creative builds. I mean, there's some that I think are actually pretty interesting. I guess there was only one game that he really misbuilt. That was a game last week. Yeah, the Ahri one was terrible. There was a game last week where I had some issues with his build. But the Orianna Void Staff, I will give him credit there. I actually think it was good. I know Freak was flaming him on the broadcast, but Freak normally gets everything wrong. So if Freak is flaming what you're doing, like playing Rumble Jungle and MSI, for example, you're probably doing something good. Like, you should take that.
I like how you're just never going to let that go. That's my favorite.
Oh, no.
Can we spend another decade talking about that? That'd be great for me. I mean, I enjoy it. So
yeah, sure. I mean, I'm going to keep on bringing it up. I'm going to keep on bringing it up until this guy finally finds a way to admit fault. Anyways, The game that they
Tom,
played against
I've known him for almost 20 years now, and that hasn't happened. So you're going to be waiting a lot longer, I think.
Oh, no, hey, it's content. I can just play them on my streams for the next 20 years. Like, it's fine. At the rate that we're going, I'm not going to be able to co-stream anything soon. So it's all live views. And when it's all live views, I'm only dealing with Twitch regulations, which is way more lenient than anything that Riot does. But back to the point. I think that this might be the worst Ari build that I've ever seen in my life by PoE here. I don't know how, I mean, we could go through and do the math on the AP, but you're dealing with maybe 300 AP, almost full build. His items this game, for people that didn't watch the game, Ever for Us first, into Zhonya's, into Banshee's Veil, into Lichbane. It can't get much worse than that. Like, how you're going to end up with a 6-item mage build without a death cap and a void staff in there at some point, I just don't know how it's possible. Like, it just can't be a thing. So normally it's about deciding on which order you're going to go the items in, but like these items were it just makes no sense. And like people were arguing, oh, maybe he wants a Lichbane to backdoor. Well, I mean, I don't even think that that's like a reasonable argument. I think that honestly, like other items could potentially even be better in that circumstance, like a Nasher's Tooth, like attack speed, because you already do a lot of damage based on your AP.
Yeah.
And if you have relatively low AP, then Lichbane is not amplifying it that much, meaning that the auto attacks are not going to do that much anyway. So I don't even think that that's a way you could argue around it. I think the build was just overly defensive and like pretty much bad, because if you're playing Ari, you need like I agree with going utility. I think that there is room to like prioritize ability haste and things like that, but just full defensive items I just really dislike on Ari, especially Banshee's Veil and Zhonya's in the same game. It's normally like one or the other. You take one.
Yeah, exactly.
You take one and that's it. Like if you need a Zhonya's, you need a Zhonya's. If you need a Banshee's, you need a Banshee's. If not, like just get some other items in there that actually deal some damage.
One of the pushbacks. So I know I'm kind of going backwards here and opening a can of worms, but I was at the LCS this week and I did get to chat with Freak about the tweet, about the build stuff.
I'm sorry.
And one of the things that he told me was that because it's more than just one spell rotation, therefore that's why that build, he was like, that's trolling because you're hitting a Scion. You're not going to blow up the Scion in one go. So having something that gives you more CDR or what is it called? Ability haste. Yeah, ability haste, and then like health would help you more in that fight. And I think that's kind of the thinking here from Power of Evil, where it's like, all right, well, Shyvana is pretty tanky and pretty mobile, and then you've got Santorin that's pretty shifty on the Viego. Yursan is probably the only one that you can assassinate for the Void Staff here.
No, I think that was an argument for the Void Staff. From what Freak was arguing.
Yes, that's what dGon's saying. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying here is that Power of Evil is thinking like, I'm really not going to blow anyone up. So I'm here to charm and I'm here to slow so that Arrow can be the one that churns through someone, or Revenge can be someone that churns through someone. Okay.
So what I was saying was, I think that the whole drama that happened when people were talking about this itemization with Freak was the Orianna game into EG where he was playing. Yeah. So it wasn't this game. It wasn't the Ari game. It was the Orianna game.
That's what dGon was referring to at first.
Right. That's what I'm referring to when I'm saying the thought process that Freak was applying to that game, whereas like you should have different items, is what Power of Evil is using in this game, where it's like, hey, I'm not going to blow anyone up in one go as Ari. In terms of these champs,
but he's not even going ability like so. If you wanted a lot of ability haste, then you'd go a Cosmic Drive. So he's not even going for ability haste. He's going for defensive items, which are purely defensive. And then in the game that Freak was originally arguing that point, like CDR only matters if you're going to actually get another rotation off. Like it's not a thing where it's like, oh, like CDR, you get off more rotation. Well, you have to actually see like how long are you fighting, and like are you going to be getting off another rotation, and like when would that rotation come in generally, and like how long are the fights? And then you have to then go in and be like, okay, so with the Void Staff, you're dealing more damage every single time. Is the Void Staff going to out damage all the extra rotations of spells that you could potentially get off like in that last rotation that would be achievable there? So I mean, I think that the idea that going a Void Staff into tanks is bad just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I don't agree with that logic at all, because the other thing that people have to understand is it's like the items scale with other items, right? So it's not like
Right.
you just have a Void Staff or you just have a Seraph's, and then it's like, okay, that's where the game ends. It's like 2 items. Like you either choose one. It's like, no, then your third item matters. And the Void Staff allows your third item to be way fucking stronger on Orianna, because then you could go a Death Cap. And obviously AP is really good on Orianna because Orianna only has 3 offensive abilities. One of them is a shield, meaning that magic pen, like, or whatever, like, is not as applicable on that. So then you could argue like, oh, the CDR is nice for it, but how many times are you actually going to get it off in a fight? And I think the problem is when there's 2 things that you're going to need to kill, you have a Liandry's, number 1, so you already have ability haste. Going the Seraph's extra ability haste is not super great, and also by building a Void Staff, the mythic passive on Liandry's is giving you ability haste anyway, so it's not like you're getting that much value out of the ability haste. And
there's also the question of the circumstances in which you would get a rotation off with more ability haste that you wouldn't get a rotation off without that ability haste, which I think is a very fringe case most of the time.
Right. Do you get 2 instead of 3? Do you get 4 instead of 5? Like, you know, how long is that actual fight? So I understand that, and that makes sense.
Yeah, but like the thing is also, like, Orianna has to hit the top. Like, Orianna is not an assassin. Orianna has no possibility of actually hitting the back line, right? Like, there's no chance that Ezreal and Karma are going to be killed, or realistic. Like, you can never reliably go into a game and be like, oh, well, as Orianna here, I'm just not going to hit the Trundle and Sion in my face. I'm actually just going to be like hitting the fucking Karma and the Ezreal. So
yeah,
the Void Staff, like, should just be good into people that are tanks. Like, just logically, if you think about how this game, like, if Void Staff is bad as a second item into people that have an insane amount of MR, then the game is actually just dog shit. Like, then the game just needs to be completely reworked, because the item is shit in comparison to what it should be. I mean, Void Staff is an item that is like 3,500 gold efficient item. Like, it is ridiculously efficient. Like, the stats you get are ridiculously efficient. And if you're penetrating that much magic resist, like if you're playing against a Scion, also like Trundle, people are arguing the number. One thing I noticed is people are arguing the number of the magic resist that Trundle had, without talking about his ultimate, which his ultimate is going to obviously give him magic resist. So it's not going to be just the number of him having a chem tank. And then the other thing is the possibility of other people building magic resist in this game. So like, he's playing against the Rise. The Rise is going to go Force of Nature eventually. Every Rise goes the same build these days. They just go Everfrost into Fimbulwinter, and then they just go Force of Nature and Frozen Heart in whichever order they want. So if you're playing into a champion that has the ability to get a Negatron at any point, and a Negatron is only a 900 gold item, that's already going to completely change how much damage Void Staff is going to do. So I think the issue with that type of thinking is, like, it's very short-sighted, because you're not getting the Void Staff because you're staying on 2 items forever. You're getting the Void Staff so your third item can be better, and then your fourth item can be better. And if you go Seraphs, and then you need a Void Staff, then your three items, which is going to be like a very core power spike in competitive, because that's when a lot of the fights are going to happen. This is like when you're going to be 25 minutes into the game, Baron's going to be up, you're going to be potentially fighting for soul. Like, this is going to be your build that's going to be the most crucial. You're going to have Seraph's Void Staff and Liandry's instead of Liandry's Void Staff Death Cap. So I think that's the biggest issue with that line of reasoning.
So I now have it make more sense to me that I can explain it simpler. You can either have a rapid fire gun that doesn't do a lot of damage, or one big bazooka that does a lot more damage, right? And that's kind of the thing at 3 items, right? And that's where the Void Staff comes in. Thank you for breaking that down a little bit more. And I love doing that with you, because you're able to explain the intricacy of it. It's really easy for everyone to just jump on the bandwagon and just like shit on people and just follow along with the Twitter following, but they don't know exactly why, and that makes it make sense. Kind of like what we did with the Skarner, the Skarner breakdown a little while ago. That was pretty funny.
The Skarner breakdown was literally an argument about CDR. It's like, how many more Qs can you get off with like a Qmax build? But yeah, that was another story.
That was a good one. All right, so
I think the larger issue is, I think, too, the difference in the way that Ahri is played. Like, I guess watching a bunch of kind of high-level Korean games and seeing the way that Ahri is used in these scenarios, and, you know, trying to build a little bit more aggressively, doing things like getting really dark seals and Medjais and these items that will scale, and then playing Ahri very effectively around Fog of War, and War is a pick champion, necessitates fewer items or fewer defensive items. Because I guess in my perspective, it's like the Ahri shouldn't need the defensive items because the Ahri shouldn't be in a position to require the defensive items if you're playing a proper pick composition. And a lot of the comps that are used with Ahri in Korea are based off of long range pick. Like exciting game this happened this last week was T1 versus KT, which was surprisingly good despite KT kind of being shit recently. They pulled off a pretty good series. But the reason why it was interesting is because you had, KT playing around, Ahri very effectively with some long range picks, like playing Kai'Sa and Rek'Sai. And so everybody just piles over a wall and gets a pick at that point in time. So I guess for me, it just feels like in a lot of these Western games that Ahri is just frankly just straight being misused a lot of the time. It doesn't seem that they're like, it shouldn't be necessary to even build defensively in the first place, I think, if you're playing the champion properly.
Almost like a team fighting mage rather than a pick assassin, AP assassin.
I mean, she's just a worse team fighting mage, basically. Like that's not the effective ways that I've seen her used in comps.
I mean, I think I watched the T1 versus KT series, but I remember when I watch it on mute, so I have no idea what's happening. Is Arya just benched, or like why was he?
So Arya has been benched, yes.
How you feeling about that, Monty?
Well,
it is what it is.
I thought he did a good job at Worlds. He hasn't been great in LCK this year, so that's unfortunate for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like when I was watching that KT game, I mean, I think that kind of leads you into the T1 thing because I thought KT was playing pretty well, and I don't think like T1 was playing perfectly. And I feel like a lot of the narratives that I hear are very like, I mean, I'm seeing tweets like, oh well, congratulations on winning Worlds, like T1.
No,
like,
I think that's insane right now.
Yeah, it's like
look, here's the reality of the T1 win streak. They have 2 of Genji's 3 losses have come against T1 when Genji was without core players on the roster, right?
Yes.
So it's not really the greatest indication of T1's strength. T1, I think, does certain things very well around objectives or cross-map trading, but I also think that they get caught out. Like the KT game was enabled by Zeus and Gumayusi in particular, overplaying their hands, playing too aggressively, playing carelessly. When it came to push, when it came to pushing
over wall.
And I think like KT came in with a very specific strategy that was probably very unlike what T1 had been playing against, but they should be able to read and adapt to that situation. I mean, realistically, like if that Rek'Sai doesn't start getting stuff done in the early game, that Rek'Sai's a fucking turd when it comes to the late game. So if you play pretty conservatively, like I don't think that series is very close. And I also think that Korea is doing an incredible job, but a lot of it feels like he's babysitting Gumayusi a lot of time and trying to get Gumayusi out of kind of questionable situations or questionable positions. So I do think that there's flaws. And I've talked about this last week where, sometimes they overplay their lanes. That's not their strength. They get killed in lane or they overextend. It's that what they do very well is they react cross map well, and then they play around some of the objective control situations pretty well. But again, it's, playoffs is really going to be the determining factor for this T1 roster because they haven't faced most of their opponents at full strength, or they're more, I would say not most, but their most dangerous opponent at full strength.
T1, 2 more matches here against Kwangdong and was it Fredit Brion to close out the record here. So
Fredit Brian.
Well, they have then they have week 9 as well, so they have 4 more matches. So they play Live Sandbox and then DRX, and DRX is probably their last big challenge. Although, like talking about the freaks, like having Teddy play against T1 is kind of fun just for storylines.
Yep.
So there you have it. SKT1's former record back in 2015 under fire, but I mean, Faker's still there. So T1,
there's so many asterisks to this. Like, this. It just sucks that Genji had players out on both occasions.
They had COVID. like both times.
And I guess Chovy has it now. And, for whatever fucking reason that I still don't understand, LCK players who played remotely at their team facilities for the majority of the last 2 years apparently suddenly are not able to play remotely from their homes, even with COVID now. So I don't know who's making that decision, but that doesn't make any sense at all. You already have the technology to do it. What?
Isn't COVID really bad in Korea right now?
Yes.
Yeah,
so you could make an argument that all the teams should in fact be playing from their home facilities again.
I mean, that's kind of what I would say. Like when we were spiking, I mean, what? So like Korea is a significantly smaller country than the United States, and they're at 210,000.
It's terrible.
7-day average
it's very
bad. 218,000 a day.
New cases a day. That's crazy.
That's a lot.
And there's only 50 million people in the country.
Yeah, that's like literally like 2% of your population's getting COVID per week. Like it's crazy numbers. So like, I mean, I think I'm more safe with COVID than the average person. Like I still wear a mask if I'm like in crowds and shit. Like I've just always been kind of like that because I'm just not trying to get COVID. But I feel like this is like the point where it would be completely understandable for LCK to go remote for like at least a few weeks until this dies down, or
at least give players the option to be remote. The problem is that that option doesn't even exist right now. If you can't come into the studio, they just won't let you play. That's the problem. Like I think Ruler probably could have played.
And that's the option that is given to both LEC and LCS teams, where if someone contracts it, they have the option to all play at home.
I don't understand why LCK is doing this. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. But just a quick little dive into what's happening at LCK with 2 weeks left in the schedule. Speaking of that, just real quick, it was announced, going back to LCS, just because we're speaking about COVID and in person or not in person, it was officially announced that finals is taking place in Houston, NRG Stadium, April 22nd, I believe, that weekend of April 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
Keep in mind, dGon, they can fill a stadium full of people, but they can't fill the LCS studio full of a few people. Just consider that logic for a second. Just consider.
Right.
Anyway, moving on.
I feel like that should be opening up soon. That was a topic of conversation at the LCS studio. Again, the only people that were there were the teams, the production staff, and then media, which there was I think five or six of us that were there. So not very many people there, but it was a discussion that we had that if we're doing Houston, why isn't it happening here at the LCS studio, especially with playoffs coming up? And I think
especially with LA dropping mask mandates in indoor locations as of this past week.
Right. And
so
I
the
think
county thinks it's safe.
Well, what I heard offhand, right? It wasn't an on the record kind of thing, but was that they're trying to do it, right? They're doing it as fast and safe as possible. So,
I mean, it makes sense, but it's like so. Just to compare,
there are no impediments to them doing it, by the way, so they can just do it. That's not like they can just say we're doing it and then it happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing.
I mean, it makes sense when the cases have dropped as much as they were now. But like, if you think about how it is in Korea, like Korea, number one, also like the way like the distribution of the country, it's like way like. I mean, if you look at the United States, our people are way more spread out than in Korea.
Yeah,
so like if Korea, it's significantly denser. In Korea, especially like around Seoul, right? Like Seoul has how many people? What, like 20 million or something crazy? Like, yeah. So you would think that like, if all of these precautions were taken, I mean, LEC still has precautions, LCS has precautions, and the cases are this bad. You would think that LCK would probably have to go remote at some point soon, if like everyone's playing by the same rules.
No, Dom, we're just going to play playoffs with half the players gone. That seems like a great
nice
plan.
That's what I'm getting at here. I don't actually like. I'm not freaking out that much about COVID. Still, it's more just I want to see the teams play with their fucking players. Like, and if Genji doesn't get to play with fucking Chovy in playoffs, it's like I don't even want to watch that shit. I wouldn't even want to. Like that's the problem. Is like I just want the teams to actually fucking play. And I mean, you're just going to have a lot of players getting COVID if this is how, this is how much of an issue it is right now. Yeah.
Sorry, Arnold. Let's move on let's keep it over there in the top tier major regions and talk about LPL and their Classico talked about it at the top of the show, or hinted at it at the top of the show. RNG, EDG, always a great match. And they had a series that went all 3 games. It went to the way of RNG this time. Interesting move here by EDG, and you can fill me in here, Dom, if I'm incorrect. They go with Zhejiang in the top lane, not Flandre, and he was playing a lot of Silas top. So Silas top coming out for Zhejiang. And what did you make of this series and that pick specifically?
Well, I think that it would have been a lot more interesting of a series if in game 3 they didn't go back to the Silas top, because I felt like game 1 you saw the Silas top, you're like, Silas top and Tadar, it was a good try, didn't work out. Let's play something else. Let's play a different.
I like how he missed the Gnar ult in 2 different games on those games.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's
I got it next time, coach.
That's the thing. It's like it's like, do you really want to lose an entire series based off the same pick twice? Like, the whole beauty of playing best of 3 is that you can go for that Silas in game 1, and if it doesn't work out, you don't have to play it anymore. You can just go back to what you were doing that got you there in the first place. But I was pretty disappointed to see them go back to it and then just pretty much lose. I mean, can't really say lose because of it, but I mean, they lost a lot of momentum in the game based off this Silas top missing ult in that second game as well. And JJ dying off the just play, it was just complete tragedy. So yeah, I mean,
he died both times, right? I know he died the Hecarim time. Did he die the Lee Sin time as well? I think he died both times.
Did he die that? Yeah, I think
he definitely died the Hecarim time. I think
he definitely died the Lee Sin time. He definitely
then he died both times.
It did work early on in game 3, I think it was, where
it did work.
It worked the way that they wanted to. They put him against the wall. JJ was able to.
It was clean as fuck when it worked.
It was super clean. It was super clean. And we're like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it, and then it didn't work ever again after that.
Yeah, that's rough. Also, I think the Vex versus Ari, I mean, it just seems like a good matchup for Vex. Like, you just think about the type of team comps you want to be playing Vex into. When you have a Silas that has a dash, Lee Sin, which has a bunch of dashes, and an Ari, like, seems like a pretty fucking good Vex game. And I mean, Jahu's also like somebody who's been trying to play the Vex like since the beginning of the split. Like, he's one of these people that just thought Vex was super strong the whole time. So yeah, I mean, I think that it was overall a pretty entertaining series. I just wish that we got like 3 different games in terms of strategy, because game 1 just felt like game 3, you know? Like, so it felt like we only got to see 2 real games of the matchup instead of a full 3-game series.
Well, that was the other thing I wanted to touch on. Vex is being prioritized more by LPL, more so than what we've seen in the LCS. And why is that? Why do you think that is that we're seeing that type of champion? We're seeing Zeri get through. Gala got to play Zeri twice. I feel like he got to play it the second time because he didn't play so well the first time that they used it. I think he died multiple times in that one. So in the second game he was 1 in 5 on the Zeri. But what about LPL's playstyle is creating this champion diversity that allows them that we just don't see in the LCS?
I think that they're just like more confident on certain counter picks, for example, and then. I mean, it feels like LCS people just are somehow getting Jinx every game. Like, you can just see the teams. It's like, oh, which team has Jinx? Oh, they probably win, unless it's Golden Guardians, in which case they might still lose. But I think that LPL at least comes up with counters faster. Like, that was the first region where I saw them just going with like the Nautilus Tristana lane to counter the Zeri. They're like, oh, Zeri, because I think that the way they view it is the same counters that are good against other champions that are similar, they'll just use and they'll try out instantly. So for example, Tristana was always really good against Kalista. Nautilus was really good against Kalista. Zeri's another super mobile champion, similar to Kalista, and then they just end up going with like the same combo. So I feel like they just like have better pattern recognition where like a new champion comes out and they immediately like go back into like their archive of what were counters to champions that kind of look like this, and they start there and then they like see if it works and, you know, go on their strategy from there. So I think that that's possibly what it is. And then also just they're more willing to play the more risky counter picks in LPL. So like you'll see Fioras in LPL to counter, you know, certain top laners like Gwen, for example, where I feel like top laners in NA, like outside of like Summit and Bwipo, aren't confident enough. Like if Fake God pulls out a Fiora, they're just fucking losing. Like let's be honest. If Fake God, Kumo, I mean maybe Kumo, yeah, I'll give Kumo a pass. He's been playing a little bit better, but like if Fake God or Licorice pulls out a Fiora, the game is fucking doomed, bro. You have a Licorice Fiora. Like you're never winning that game into like Summit or Bwipo. It's just not happening. So the players over there just are way more confident. You know, they just, you know, they believe in themselves.
Well, also, I think that the Tristana pick was somewhat necessitated by the fact that RNG was banning 3 or 4 AD carries on blue side in these matches. So I think there's truth also that this may not have been picked had certain other power picks been available, especially.
It's been picked as a counter in LPL without there being banned. So I think that's something that they just hone in on. They're like Tristana. So I think that's kind of how it comes about. Is they're like there is AD carry bans, so that's part of it. But then it's also like, do we leave up this area in this case? Then do we leave up this area because then like what we want to pick counters it, and it's like they're not going to fucking take a blind Tristana. In that case, we'll just take this area. So I think that they're probably okay with both sides of the coin.
Similar to your Aria question about KT, do you know why Flandre was benched recently?
I don't have any I didn't hear any information about it. But he just was playing like shit in the games that he was playing in. So like, I would assume it was just gameplay related. So he played again today. So if people don't know, he came back today and EDG lost to Anyone's Legend. And if people don't know who Anyone's Legend is, that's Maple. Rogue Warriors. So it's one of the historically like worst teams over the last couple years. They've been shit ever since Doinby left that team a while back. Like Rogue Warriors has just not been it. And yeah, they lost 2-1 to Anyone's Legend with Flandre back in today. So EDG is in a little bit of a crisis mode.
Yeah, so Flandre's last game was against Victory 5, who was at the top of the table and still at the top of the table, where he got bodied by Rich. It was Gwen into Kennen, or I guess Rich had Gwen.
Oh no, you can't get bodied by Rich. That's not.
Oh, everyone's getting bodied by Rich. Rich actually
is he good now?
Good. Yeah, he looks a lot better.
Wow, he got a lot better then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, this is what people don't understand. It's not so much that he's just a lot better, probably, but like you got to think about who's jungling for him. You know, like he has Karsa as a jungler. Like Karsa is one of like this. It's like having Yankos as a jungler. If you're playing top lane and you have a jungler that really understands your lane and matchups, it makes your job so much easier because you're gonna you know what Karsa's gonna bring. He's gonna bring good fucking jungle tracking. Like he's gonna let you know when you can trade, when you can't trade. He's gonna be able to gank your lanes at times. He's gonna make the game so much better for you that I feel like that's actually enabling Rich to, you know, use his talents, because he wasn't a player in Korea that was just dog shit the entire time. You know, like he was pretty dog shit by the end of summer last year, but in spring he looked promising. Like, I mean, he had good moments.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit limited in his champion pool as kind of feast or famine. But to your jungler point, he also, I mean, he did have Peanut last year,
which is like the most coin flippy, like I mean, Peanut is Peanut, right? Like
Peanut's good in the regular season, okay? he was good on that roster.
Peanut is the self-made of Korea. That's how I view this guy. Like he's not the guy that's gonna fucking help your lane or like lead you through. Like he's just gonna try to do his job well and like pop off when he can pop off. Karsa is like somebody who's reading the game. It's like why I always go with the Karsa Yankos analogy, because it's literally just it's just Yankos in LPL. It's LPL Yankos. Like
well here's a fun little nugget for you then, Dom, and you can interpret this as you will, but one of the reasons why Peanut was brought into Gen G is because they wanted his like in-game leadership and shot calling abilities on this roster. He's actually now the oldest. It's crazy to me because I remember him when he was 17, but he's actually the oldest member of this Gen G team now.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. I mean, I watched this guy play on LGD. I watched him play a lot on LGD. And I watched him play on Nongshim, and he just still looked like the same player. Like he doesn't look like the guy who's going to be like, maybe like, I don't know what leadership means. Like, are they talking about like out of game leadership, or is it like in game? Like he is going to like run the game.
Yep. In game as well.
Well, Well, maybe T1's just winning.
I love this.
LCK
I love this.
splits then. Like,
I love this. The Dom's like,
Peanut is just.
thanks for your facts, but thanks for your insight, but
No, I'm just telling him to watch his reaction. It's fine.
I literally never even know. But the thing that I know about like Koreans talking about their teammates is like you never really know what they mean by things. Like a lot of like their interviews. Like I mean. Look, I can't trust.
But I also go directly to the sources on a lot of these things, so I believe this one. Sometimes you shouldn't believe it, but this one I think is real.
No, I mean like even if a player tells me directly to their face, like I mean, we saw the interviews where they were like, we actually think LCS is really good. This was like in season 7 when they were completely like dicking everyone. It's like,
I mean, you just have to know when they're trolling and when they're not.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if Peanut is the genius of the world now.
I mean, people think, Coma is very respectful, whereas all my interactions with Coma, not that he disrespected me, but that guy talks some serious trash. Holy moly, he's hilarious. Like, he is one of the most entertaining people to like have a drink with and talk about games because he just goes he just pops off. Like, you wish you saw that on the interviews, but yeah. He's very buttoned up on the interviews. He's a very different person.
He's very buttoned up. I mean, I can see it now that, we spent time over the LCS and talked to everyone, but like, because I would say someone that you get a glimpse of in the broadcast and it gets a little spicy is like Reaper. Reaper does that and is like...
Oh no, Reaper's very transparently like that though. Reaper's very un-Korean in his kind of blunt honesty, both on camera, towards himself too, to be fair. He assesses himself, I think, very harshly as well.
Right.
But he has the same... His personality is, I would say, not very traditionally Korean, both on and off camera, which I love him. But yeah,
it was the ability to turn it on even more when it's off camera or like getting a drink like that.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. You're like, whoa. Okay. I was just asking what you thought of the team. Not yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Okay, so to close off that, Peanut second place with Genji, Karsa first place with V5. Collision course to MSI, maybe. SKTs or T1 standing in the way. I keep saying SKT for today for some reason.
That's all right. I mean, the thing that's weird about Korea is
SKT
that
was a better name.
Well, Korean fans never called them SKT. They always called them T1 because that was technically their name was SK Telecom T1, just like it was KT Rolster. It was only Western fans that called them SKT and they used the SKT tag, but for 20 years as they've been referred to T1 in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
When we take a look at another major region that just wrapped up the regular season, let's take a look at the LEC. LEC just had their final week and had playoff push. Lots of teams in playoff contention. And the big story going into it was, of course, the long-standing drought for European squad, English-based squad, XL, who made the big roster changes. Coach Youngbuck, been there for, 3 years now. Multiple different players that have come on in. Finn coming on in this season. But they weren't in yet. And to start things off, in the Friday matches, almost all the teams that needed to win to stay alive beat the better teams, specifically SK. And there was an article that was written later, or I guess earlier this week, basically where Youngbuck was saying, yeah, I saw SK win, and we know they have Gilius. Gilius made the God tier run with Schalke before. And we're like, oh God, it's happening again. But him and Patrick buckled down. They were looking at each other, and they get the job done. And so we now have our LEC playoff bracket. So let's start with the matches themselves. Dom, what did you make of this final week of the regular season here at the LEC?
I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, we got all the drama right because it could have been over in the first day, right? If Vitality win and XL win in the first day, boom, it's all done because Vitality and XL had 3-game leads over SK and Mad Lion. So at least we got the drama where, XL qualified the second day. Vitality had to take down Astralis to make playoffs. I can't believe it actually came to that. But I thought it was generally pretty interesting. I just kind of want to see what happens now in playoffs because some teams are showing some weakness. Misfits specifically, I feel like Misfits and XL are looking sketchy. I mean, Vitality just straight up looked bad, but I mean, it just Vitality has so many people on that team that have like, I mean, they have so many people on that team that have performed well before that it's like it's hard to just write them off the same way. When you look at Misfits, you're like, okay, so if people ban Lee Sin and Jinx, and then Vetio doesn't completely 1v9 every single game, how do they win? what happens?
Or Zeri. To be fair, they engineered the other G2, the G2 comeback with the Zeri, Akali, Yumi, right? So maybe they have a few more options, but yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. It seems like people are getting a read on them overall. I mean, I think it's with Vitality, it's a very interesting scenario, right? Because it's really hard to heap praise on Perkz for that performance, which he did have a good performance in that game when it's against the last place team in the entire league and one that they absolutely, should be beating. So which narrative do we want to go here? Like, are they the team that's beating the bottom feeder as expected? Or is this like the Perkz back against the wall clutch performance, right? That we're used to seeing from him when his team needs to get into playoffs. And if it is that second thing, then is that going to continue? I think one of the nice things, if you're Vitality, is that you have 3 weeks between they play the last game of the first round, and they have 3 weeks to fix a lot of their issues. And at least on professional teams, sometimes in the middle of a season, it's very hard to fix certain core problems with comms or kind of the way that you approach a game, because you're constantly trying to prepare for the next opponent. So is this a team that can be powered up for the playoffs in 3 weeks, that can fix some of these core issues with the veteran players on their roster? And we know they can perform under pressure. And as much as it's easy to dismiss Perkz always finds a way to win somehow. So I think it's rather foolish to write him off. So, it's difficult to call what Vitality is going to do with the large amount of time that they have to prepare, and also with the seasoned veteran players that they have that we know can pull it out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Vitality that should give you more hope is that most of the time when they're losing, they're running like different comps every week. Like they're one time they're going Camille Galio, like that's their prep. Then they had this like Diana Yasuo game, and they're doing way too much. They're trying so many different things. They had that Vayne comp that they ran around Carzzy before they realized that Carzzy's just going to be weak side for the rest of his life on Vitality. So
on every team.
Yeah, on every team. But to be honest, like that was part of his strength on Mad Lions, was like he was actually like being good at weak side is actually a skill. Yeah. Like I know that it's something that people shit on, but he was actually pretty decent at, I mean, sometimes he would run it down, but a lot of the times he was good at sacrificing waves that he needed to and allowing his team to make plays on the other side of the map. So in this 3-week break, I feel like if Vitality just hones in on like they have to decide in this next week. I don't want to see them spend 1 week just completely experimenting. Like they experimented the whole split. I want to see them decide in like a few days how they want to draft, what they want to do generally, and just have a plan for how they're going to approach playoffs and just stick to it the whole way through. Slot different champions into their plan. Like for me, when I watch Vitality, this is what I want to see. I want to see strong side top every single time. I want to see strong like side top. So that means that like I'm not one of the people that's going to be like Diana Yasuo, they should never play, even though they lost with that. Camille Galio, they should never play, even though they've not performed well with that either. I just want that to be like an identity thing. Like if we are playing Camille Galio, like let's get really fucking good at Camille Galio. And let's make sure that our Diana Yasuo is like a must ban. You have to ban Diana from self-made and find other ways to make that shit work. Because if you're going Diana Yasuo and then you have a Renekton, it puts this like timer on the game that you don't really want to have there. Like the Renekton pick, I feel like is almost like it counteracts what the Diana Yasuo are trying to achieve, because you're supposed to have this like great team fight comp once the Diana and Yasuo like scale a little bit and they're able to just one-shot people in the combo. But then you have Renekton that like wants the game to be played fast because he's getting outscaled all the time. So I just want to see them, and then also like the lethality Xayah with that comp makes no sense, right? Like that's just another part of it that should be thrown in. So I think that if Vitality sticks to one thing and practices that, we don't really know what version of the team are going to be. Like realistically, they probably should be the worst team in playoffs, right? Like they should just go 6th based on what we've seen up to this point. But I feel like there's smart enough people on that team. And just like when you have somebody that's done it before, I'm not going to count them out. If I were to do a prediction, actually, I would think that they would probably, well, it depends, right? Because I think that they might be better than Misfits. Like, I think that they actually match up well into Misfits. They 2-0'd them during the season. It seems just like Perkz doesn't get shit on by Vetio that much. And then they just do the normal stuff of like ban Jinx, take him off Lee Sin, whatever. And it feels like they match up pretty well into Misfits, but it might be hard for them to get Misfits because if G2 loses to Fnatic and then Misfits loses to Rogue, then G2 is the team that is in that 4th seed because they're actually lower than Misfits. They had one less win than Misfits. So you don't really know how playoffs is going to go. Maybe you end up in a world where Misfits is like let's say Misfits could potentially be the worst team in playoffs, but they might drop out like 3rd or something, right? Because of like the way that the schedule works, or 4th technically, but they might not get 6th because they're the winner bracket and they have a good seeding.
Right. And to clarify for people that don't understand, it is the top 4 teams that play the first round. They get the double elimination. The bottom 2, which are Excel and Vitality, are on single elimination bracket. Those 2 teams that lose, the lower seed will play it like a gauntlet style against the winner of the bottom bracket first. And then the higher seed will be slotted in that 4th place spot. Or I guess
G2 and Fnatic really should have won those games that they threw versus Misfits.
Yep.
Turns out it actually really fucking mattered.
Yeah, it matters a lot. Well, it might not matter that much for Fnatic because I think Fnatic's probably going to win it all. So I think that they're just going to beat anyone they play anyway. So I don't think it matters if they play against Misfits first round or G2 first round. I think they're just the favorites right now to win. They look like when they're playing well, they look like by far the cleanest team to me.
I think this last week made it a little bit closer for me because even though we saw, so first off, there were kind of there are 2 losses, one by each of these teams. Obviously, Fnatic's loss to late game Jinx, basically, and over pursuing, versus Misfits, I think was disappointing by Fnatic. And you might look at the Rogue game and say, yeah, they lost to SK, but SK has actually went 5-4 in the second round robin and had some pretty legit wins. And it's just the fact that they went 2-7 in the first round robin and they dug themselves into a giant hole that I think prevented them from, being more in the conversation about mid-table teams in the LEC or teams that can at least steal wins off of good teams. And I think for me, what gave me a little bit more confidence in Rogue was, I guess we saw some more normal games from Malrong. Like, I was concerned that Malrong's playstyle was punishable in a best of 5 that was heavily prepared for, but he played more normally this week, and I think that they had some really good reads on the enemy jungler, especially in the last game that they were playing where they like set that trap on the invade versus G2 with Trimby. And to me, their wins looked pretty strong overall. And I think that they showed less weakness, potential weakness, I should say, through the jungling from Malrong this week than I think was exploitable if you had time to prepare thoroughly for Rogue in previous weeks of play.
I think it's hard for me to feel like that because the game versus SK, I thought that Malrong played that game super fucking weird. Like, he's going Stride Breaker into a bunch of melees on Xin Zhao, which is like another thing where it's like, why? Is there any reason for it, or we're just going it just for fun? So I felt weird about that game, number one. And then in the game versus G2, like, I feel so he technically didn't cheese, right? Like, the enemy team was invading, but that's the same invade that G2 did like previously in the week. So I don't know how much that is like Malrong calling for it, or if just a team decision they actually reviewed. They're like, hey, by the way, if we're playing Hecarim, like, they like to late invade topside with their strong topside. Trimby's just like going to be there. And then even though like Malrong doesn't cheese from that point, it's like he's so ridiculously far ahead from what occurred. And Jankos is so behind that I feel like he doesn't actually have to play like the slow standard, like get the small advantages, make the right decisions style of jungling that, makes me feel confident in his abilities. So For me personally, I'm more on the side of like still being unconvinced that Malrong is going to actually be able to play at a championship level, because he's not going to have massive leads in every game like this in a best of 5. Like, he shouldn't be able to get these leads. I mean, if he does, shit, maybe he'll just win based off that. We saw Closer do it in NA, right? Like, that was literally how Closer just shit on everyone so hard early game in LCS summer 2021 finals that, you know, like, we didn't even get to see. It's like, oh, all the flaws of 100 Thieves, they don't have to even get to that point in the game. Maybe he just gets huge leads off jungle invades in all 3 games of finals or some shit, and he just wins. But I still am more on the side that I think that Malrong's jungling is pretty punishable. And it's not even like you punish it by capitalizing on what he does. It's like, if you just play normal, he's going to be doing weird stuff that's putting himself behind. Like, he's punishing himself. You know, that's what it is.
I think the reason why it's worked is because, you know, it's hard to, when he's the only one playing like this, it's hard to prepare for that kind of play on a week-to-week basis. But when you have weeks to prepare for a best of 5, I think it changes pretty dramatically, which is why I said I was encouraged about seeing some more normal-ish jungling from him this last week. But yes, I mean, with the lead he had, he didn't really have to do a whole lot in the game versus G2. So I guess it's just, again, depending on whether they're going to correct that, or the alternative is they just come up with crazy cheese and just use that instead. That's certainly possible, especially with him in the jungle. I wouldn't count that out either. There could be a few set plays that they try and design in order to get him ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can draft in certain ways. Like, I mean, one thing that Rogue likes to do is they draft really aggressive bot lanes. There's ways you could draft super aggressive bot lanes, late invade bot side, split the map, and then just make the game really streamlined for him. So yeah, there's definitely possibilities for that. I can see that.
Well, that's Zlatan's job. 4 games, 4 champs only played here. Lee Sin, Xin Zhao, Diana, and J4 for the jungler for Misfits, as they're the ones that take on Rogue in that first round match. Wanted to touch on Mad Lions. So Mad Lions traditionally, over the last several years, been built up as a contender. They had the 2 big moves that pulled away 2 of their stars, but still had foundational pieces with Armit, Elyoya, and Kaiser. They finished 3-0. They made the big push for playoffs, but just fall short when we look at
crazy what happens when you get TF 3 games in a row, and it enables your old play style that you had with Humanoid on one of his best champs, where the players that you have on this roster for the most part know how to play around a TF very well because they have been long accustomed to this. I mean, this is a champ that was basically 100% pick ban in LEC. Probably shouldn't go over to Mad Lions, 3 games in a row.
Yep.
Yeah. TF, 62 games banned, 15 games played, 80% win percentage. 80. It's ridiculous. So there you have it.
Wow. Mad Lions got 1/4 of the entire league's TF wins in 1 week. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Mad Lions just they had so much success early. I think the Diana Yasuo games honestly came back to fuck them, because they played Diana Yasuo. They had success early. They're like, oh, like, we're gonna be this team that can play like everything. They kind of got into the Vitality trap. Just they weren't as deep into it, where they're like, we are good at everything, and then they never really honed in on a style. And I feel like it was really hard for Reeker and Unforgiven to adapt to the team when Kaiser and Elyoya were playing so much worse. And one take that I gave on the Best Damn League show that I think I could give about Elyoya as well, that I gave on Kaiser, was this guy's best champion was Leona, right? Like, he played so much Leona last year. He was like a Leona one trick. That was their thing. You could play Leona, this guy would smurf on it every game. He played like 1 game of it this whole split. Like, they just did this thing where they were trying to play way too many things that didn't factor into their style. And then Elyoya had a similar thing where, like, he was always the meta slave. He was the jungler that could play all the meta really, really well. And he played his first Xin Zhao game in the 17th game of the split for Mad. And it's like, dude, like, that is the champion right now for a player like Elyoya, someone who's really cerebral, really, really smart about the game, does the right things generally all the time in game, why not just give him the best jungler that just plays that style? You know, it's not like you have to learn a different way to play the game when you're playing Xin Zhao. He was the Volibear guy, right? Like he played a bunch of Volibear before. It's the same type of thing. It's literally like the same type of champion. Just have him plug and play that and he'll do so much better. So I was a little bit upset with how they drafted. I just felt like they could have been, I don't know. I think they could have just honed in on the meta a lot quicker, or just played in like the weeks 5, 6, and 7 a lot more things that would give them a higher chance to get to playoffs. So instead of having those like Pyke games, like why are we playing this random Pyke Ahri game? Like Kaiser's not a Pyke player. That's not Hillsong. That's Kaiser. If we just played Xin Leona like 3 of those games, you're telling me we're not winning 1? If we win 1, we're in playoffs. That's it. It was that easy.
I do wonder, but it's also very clear that they went back to, their kind of their last roster's comfort zone in terms of the players' roles, right? A mid laner who's going to create pressure like with the TF, like Humanoid used to do, provide help for the jungler on the roams, have a strong engaged support coming in from Kaiser. And that's going to be the game plan. And like the reason I think why they were successful is, if you remember, what Mad Lions coaching staff says was they said that they wanted to replace Shadow with Elyoya because they needed a more vocal early game leader and shot caller, because no one else was that person on the roster. And if Elyoya is still supposed to be that person, he needs other people to enable him in the early stages of the game. And I think that's what these comps do a lot better than previous Mad Lions comps that we've seen. So in my mind, I think it looked to me like they were trying to find the kind of new identity or styles that they could have with this team, but it worked the best this last week when they went back to kind of their identity from last year, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like an idea of trying to be even better than you were, where you're like, okay, if we have Reeker and Reeker just plays like Humanoid, he's just gonna be a worse version of Humanoid. Whereas like if we do some like Diana Yasuo type shit, like we might be able to like find like what our style is that makes us even better than we were last year. But it's like, now we're not even in fucking playoffs. Like, so there's a bit of an issue with how well, like it was a little too experimental throughout the split, in my opinion.
Yeah. And a major difference for our North American fans, or fans that aren't as well versed with the LEC, they have championship points. So spring does kind of matter, right? You're able to accrue those points there. And now Mad Lions, who have been at Worlds now 2 years in a row, are going to be playing catch up for the summer split. Okay, so no more LEC for a little while. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's very unlikely that, Mad Lions would have to improve at such a dramatic pace to even match up with a lot of these other LEC rosters. And they would also have to hope that Vitality somehow doesn't get better, which, does seem to stretch belief in a lot of ways. Like, I just don't see how Mad Lions overtakes enough teams to put themselves in like a, top 4 conversation for a trip to Worlds.
Well, I don't think it's that hard, is it?
Rogue, Vitality.
Well, so I don't think G2 is very good. I don't think Vitality is like good at all right now. And then XL and Misfits, like either XL and Misfits, like I don't think you have to get that good to potentially go to Worlds for me.
You think it's just the third slot?
Yeah,
but my point is that you have to hope basically all of those teams, or at least enough of them, get worse, right? And I think Vitality will get better. I think that one is very safe to say that. Unless his roster entirely implodes, but I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if
I can see Misfits getting worse.
Yeah, I can see Misfits and XL getting worse. I mean, I just don't know if Lebrov and Selfmade will ever learn how to play together.
I think they'll just replace one of them during, between the splits.
Okay. I mean, yeah, if that happens, I think that, yeah.
I think they'll replace Lebrov, not Selfmade, but
yeah,
I could definitely see that happening between spring and summer.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I just feel like Lebrov is held in such high regard by LEC players that it would surprise me. Every time you talk to anyone about Lebrov, they're like, this guy is so fucking insane. Like, okay, he's just one of those players where he's always super high rated in solo queue. He's like rank 2 right now. He was rank 1 all of like last split. Like, I think pro players really respect that. They're just like, damn, this guy is actually like really good,
Well, he shouldn't
We
have
could teach
problems
him.
finding another team then.
He's got good mechanics. We'll see.
I mean, sometimes these jungle support synergy issues are just unsolvable. So it might just be a clash between LeBron and SoloMid that they might both be great players, but they're just not going to be playing together. So not a knock against LeBron, but
you need one guy who's smart and you need one guy who's good. Like they don't both have to be good. They don't both have to be smart. One has to be.
I like that.
Both.
I like that a lot.
One could be both. I'm not saying like you don't have to choose, but like, yeah, I mean that's the issue. I think that the thing that Vitality would actually need is they need like a support like even like Advian or a support like Treats, which I don't think that they would go for. Like they will go for the guy that's like that wants to learn how to play the map well. That's gonna sit there in VODs and be like, oh, like this is where we should have like grouped and got vision together. Like I can't see SoloMid or LeBron doing that. You know, like that doesn't seem like SoloMid's personality. You think SoloMid's gonna take time out of his day and like start watching like VODs of their own games and be like, okay, so this is like when we need to walk in together, LeBron. Like, okay, we gotta like, so here we need to sync our bases, and then we're gonna walk into the top side and set up vision, and then like we can look for play mid. If it's not there, you go back bot, you push this wave. Then on your next recall, that's when we make our Herald rotation. We want to make sure that we're rotating quickly with our prio. I'll hover bot lane so you can get the wave push to enable us to base together. Like, is this conversation really gonna be like? I can't see it happening. I really can't see it happening.
Well, you're the one
Who's
that have
gonna
the
nerd out?
with him. So
Who's
I feel
gonna
like
nerd out on the
you're
fucking their own VODs in this team?
well, it also requires the other people to listen to the guy who's nerding out, which is an entirely separate issue.
Oh, I think they will. I don't really have that much of I feel like they're all willing to do it. It's just I don't think one of them is going to take the active role in like solving the problem. And I think that like coaching staff will try to do it, but that's not really how things get solved.
Especially with a team like that, with those vets, with their experience.
Yeah.
All right. LEC. We won't see it for another 3 weeks, maybe like 2.5 weeks by the time this video gets posted. But we'll keep an eye out for that when we come back to it. Before we hop into the next segment, I want to remind you that you can catch this video and all of the League of Legends content over at Deserto YouTube channel. So make sure to type that on in, like and subscribe to the video. It helps us out, keeps the bills paying, keeps Monty and Dom still chatting with me about your favorite topics. And speaking of your favorite topics, I asked earlier on Twitter, and I also read the comments, so you can put it there as well. I like seeing what our fans want to chat about and talk about. So, guys, I had a very good question.
I don't, so send them to dGon only.
Yeah, you can send them to me or just write it right in the comments. You should, Monty. Like, do you know how much, like, in the YouTube comments, everyone's like, God, Monty's so right. Everything that he said is I fully 100% like.
It's really
crazy.
Fulfilling.
It is
really fulfilling.
It is good comment.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. Here we go. So here's our question of the week. Our Deserto question of the week. Where is it? Oh shit, I can't find it now. I want to make sure I read it correctly because it's pretty good. All right, here we go. This is from Engine_EU on Twitter. He titled himself the Messiah of the Jungle. He goes, who would win in a best of 5 between Astralis and TSM, and why is it Astralis? Dom, you're on the clock.
Oh, Astralis would win for sure because Astralis actually has a formula for how they play the game, where TSM doesn't have anything. Like TSM is just hoping that they win games, but Astralis actually does something well. Like they play engage comps. Like they have an identity. They play Vex mid with an engage support bot, whether it's Leona or Galio that will follow like a Jarvan engage. And they're just going to look for fights and go in. Also, Promiscu like has really good support roams this split, like especially second half of the split. Seems like they actually developed a way to play the game. Teams in LEC caught on to it, but I can't trust TSM to be able to target an opponent's weakness and actually exploit it in the draft and put them against the wall on something that they're uncomfortable with and win. I just don't feel like TSM has any systems right now, where like Astralis actually does have systems. They're just systems that have exploits.
It's also Astralis at least has been able to build up some respectable early game leads, or at least not fall super far behind and like play even for at least like the first 20 minutes of the game. When they've been exploited, it's that their late game shot calling kind of falls apart, and that's where they tend to lose. But it's not like we're dealing with some magnificent macro team in TSM either that is going to be able to thoroughly exploit a team or even come back from behind against a team that has a significant early game advantage. So I think it's hard to think that TSM would win that best of 5. TSM just hasn't even found their own identity yet. I will say that this last week I was mildly encouraged that they decided to put Huni like on a carry role again instead of having him be an enchanter bitch. But
they nerfed it out of the game for this.
That's true. Like, that's true. But I mean,
Riot did that. They actually didn't come to any conclusions themselves. Riot forced them to not
he
have
wasn't,
Huni as
he
an
wasn't
enchanter
playing
bitch.
on a lot of these more carry style champions, even like when he wasn't playing an enchanter, because it's not like he played an enchanter for every single game either. So I guess with Huni, like that was at least a mild, like felt like that could be potentially some kind of identity for them going forward, but it's certainly not solid enough to really feel like at the current time that they would be able to beat Astralis.
All right, there you have it. Make sure to send more of those questions and topics over to us on the comments or at dGon. I will make sure to get
Astralis at least has upset top teams too.
Look, also, look, what it sucks for Astralis that they made a deal with the devil, and the one thing that they chose to do is they said, I want to be better than TSM for next year. And I was like, granted, like you can be better than TSM next year, and then this is the fucking result of it. Like, you don't make deals with the devil, kids. This is why.
This is the start, though, right? For a while, it was Rogue would beat the shit out of TSM. And now, look, Rogue's one of the best teams in the LEC. So just give it a couple of years, and that Danish money from Astralis will shoot its way on up, and they'll have themselves a roster.
Yeah, what money? The money they tried to not pay their League of Legends team?
Yup. That's a lot of
home. Good guy.
All right. Let's see. Next up, let's go to our match of the week from last week. If there was one match, because both of you have been ingesting a ton of games, if there was one match that you would want fans to go back and watch highlights of or go sit down and watch the full thing through, what would it be? I think we might have alluded to both of your answers already, but Monty, let's have you go first on this one.
I mean, I really enjoyed the EDG RNG game. I think Ming played like fucking great and had some really cool outplays in that series. Like sometimes it was like a bit sloppy. EDG definitely, some of their like deep jungle dives with no vision where they just wiped in a team fight were super questionable. And they got a little bit over eager and over aggressive at times. But for the most part, I found it pretty fun to watch.
Dom?
My match of the week is actually going to be an LCS one. I liked EG versus C9. I thought that was pretty entertaining. I like to see like Summit get pressured. It felt like neither team was playing like shit. You know, both teams were actually like trying to do things. I like seeing how useful Summit was while like being behind on Gwen. Like he played really
him zoning
well
out
that
those
game.
chokes with the mist was like really good for a player that was in a tough position.
He took up so much space, and a lot of players like that. That's what people always criticize with LCS players. It's like when they're 0-4 like that, they don't play to win in the fights. They play to like not look like shit.
Bad.
Yeah. But if you want to see what the opposite of that looks like, watch how Summit plays from a deficit this game. Like he's really absorbing a ton of pressure, and he's creating so much space for his carries. So I really like that game. I'd say EG versus C9 was probably my favorite from this week.
Also, Blabber playing in that game was super entertaining. It was really entertaining overall, entertaining picks with the Kazakhs as well. And like having the Volibear get so enormous in that game was really fun. So I thought it was entertaining for sure.
If you want a specific example of what Dom's talking about, I think one of the dragon fights, watch Danny. Yeah. Danny tries to do everything and anything he can to attack somebody. He tries to drop, I think, the Aphelios turret inside the mist so that it hits Summit, and Summit moves the mist slightly outside of the turret range. Danny doesn't know what to do, so he walks forward and then just gets absolutely blasted by Blabber. I rewatched that play like 4 or 5 times to be like, what happened to Danny? This is weird. And it was less of, I mean, it wasn't a great decision by Danny, but it was what Dom was talking about, just great pressure by Summit in a position where he wasn't necessarily dealing a lot of damage, but making space and time for the rest of his team, and also making it difficult for Danny to do anything.
Also goes to show why top teams continuously place a high priority on Gwen, because even if she's useless and dies in the early game, she can still provide something at mid-game fights with like the 5 seconds of zone control. And then late game, once she comes online with a couple items, she's absolutely fucking devastating. So shows a lot of reasons why you pick that champ too if you're a good player.
For me, I think it's the Immortals Team Liquid game. Show me the Shyvana, show me the throw, the panic there. The media room was
That is
the
such
media
a
room was
dGon game.
blown up. It was such a me game, dude. That was fun to watch. I just wanted to watch a fun game. That was fun. It was fun to see Immortals figure out like, hey, let's try to find another way to win. And then also fun to see them like fuck it up. And I'm like, all right, cool. It's not just me and solo queue. Like that happens to everybody.
It was fun for me up until they were standing in TL's base at the end, and then half of them decided to fight and arrow shot the Nexus instead of just walking back and taking Elder with the jungler dead.
Yeah.
See,
It was fun. It was fun up until that point, and then it became really not fun for me.
See, the throws don't affect dGon like they affect us. You know, like dGon could just watch something and be like, "That was just entertaining," and I'm not gonna like even if there's points that were bad, it's still entertaining. For me, it just hurts too much. Like when I start watching TL like throw that, like when I see Wibbo just Shyvana ult into the whole enemy team in that Drake fight, and they suddenly just lose, I'm like, this is fucking horrible. This is what the fuck is TL doing? Like TL's actually going to lose this game.
Did you enjoy TL running around after people after the Baron too, like not realizing that Revenge was in their base and then getting their recall?
Oh my god.
I think they just thought more people had to base than actually did. I feel like they recognized the situation. I just think that they thought it was more desperate. They're like, Graves is ending. Like everyone recall. When in reality they should be like, hey, like 2 people, like you 2 just stay and fight because you're way stronger, and then I'm just gonna recall, hold it, and then when you guys are done winning the fight, then you come and help your boy.
3 points, 2 of them on that. One of them I got to interview Santorin afterwards, and he was like, I've never wanted to forget a game faster, which is 1. 2, in that recall moment before they do the backdooring right at Baron, Power of Evil, I think he tried to flash Orb of Deception. All 3 members of Team Liquid are standing on top of each other, and somehow it doesn't hit Santorin. And that's how Santorin's able to get back, stall out the game for the next throw that Immortals does. And then the third thing is, to your point about me enjoying this, all 3 of us on the show have had competitive experience, right? Monty was an owner. Dom obviously played a lot, and then I managed and ran Golden Guardians. And I think the reason why I can look at this and be okay with it is that I think both of you found levels of success that I just never had. So I had to be okay with these types of games. I had to be.
That's just impressive. God damn.
I don't know. I don't know about that
it was
one,
more than me. It was more than me.
I don't know about that one.
Well, actually, yeah, you had the was it the Baron?
The worst game of all time. Yes.
The worst game of all time. All right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was infinitely more painful owning that team.
Yeah.
I did have more success with coaching CLG though. So
you're right. You had CLG as well.
At least I had some level of nominal success in that endeavor. But I wouldn't say the ownership one was my crowning glory, as it were. Far from it, in fact.
All right, let's move on to the staple segment of our. Oh, actually, no. One more match of the week going forward. So in the global land of League of Legends, whether it's the LCS, LCK, LPL, or minor region. Who did I miss? LEC. I guess LEC is taking a break, which is why I say it. What are the games that you want people to watch? Something that you are looking forward to and other people can watch along with you?
Genji Damwon Kia, if Chovy is playing. I guess we'll hear about that. That happens on Wednesday, so I don't know what kind of shape the team will be in. But if the whole roster's playing, that's between the 2nd and 3rd places in LCK, so that could potentially be quite interesting.
Yeah. And that one again, I guess just look it up on Leaguepedia. I was going to try to calculate it, but we have such a big European audience. I was like, never mind. That's really hard to figure out what time
it will be
at
3 a.m. Pacific, 6 a.m. Eastern time, and I believe that is 11 a.m. Central European time.
Oh, there it is. Monty on top of it. Dom, what you got for us?
So there's a couple. So I think so. We're shooting this right now on a Monday. It'll probably go up tomorrow. So the game will probably have already happened when people see this. But V5 versus BLG tomorrow. I think that's a really big one. The BLG is the super team of they're kind of like the Vitality of China. You know, like they're not experiencing huge success, but people have faith in the roster. I mean, Fofo was the best player on his team. Breathe was, if not the best player, the second best player. Some people argue Bishang. But BLG, you know, Uzi has not been playing so far. I don't expect him to see him tomorrow, but V5 is one of the best teams, if not the best team in LPL right now. So watching BLG play against them should be interesting. And then on Saturday, you have BLG versus EDG. So same BLG team versus EDG. And EDG's been struggling. EDG's been losing a lot of games. EDG doesn't have a match up until then. They had a match today that they lost. So want to see if EDG can bounce back because both the teams have not been experiencing probably as much success as they wanted.
Yeah, you know, and the roster, I guess, moves that we've been waiting to see, you know, who's going to be playing there in the top lane. So we'll keep an eye on that. For me, it's the team that handed the first loss to C9. It'll be on Sunday. TLC9 going back at it. The top two teams. It's been pretty clear that it's, you know,
and now
those
with
two
TL's
and then
full
everybody
roster
else.
as well, because the first time around TL was playing Isla at support, so this will be the first time we actually get to see them see TL versus C9 at full strength.
That's right. And I guess both teams have middle of the pack games on Saturday. TL against EG, which not too bad, and then C9 versus Immortals, and Immortals have just lost so many heartbreakers so far. We'll see if those will be good tune-ups for the big match there on Sunday. And then finally close it out, the staple. It's time for God or Dog, where we highlight one godlike player, and one dog-like player, where they can level up, and they got to spend some time in the doghouse. So let's start with you, Dom. Who is your god for the week?
Who is my god for the week? So this is going to be surprising because I know Blabber won player of the week in LCS, but I just wanted to give it to Fudge because I think Fudge has been playing really well on mid lane considering everything. I mean, for somebody that's newly role swapped, like he is putting on a good performance and he's playing against, you know, like people like JoJo that are really good laners. He's able to hold his own. And he's not making that many mistakes. I mean, I'm seeing things that I like the dive bot, for example, with the Rizal, like the presence of mind to do that. We heard from an interview that with Blabber that Fudge actually like called that. He's like, oh, look, we have a window right here on this wave. Like we're diving bot right now with the Vol Barrel, like all that stuff. I like seeing that out of a mid laner. So I think Fudge has been playing really well. I mean, I was somebody who was more positive on the Fudge transition. I thought he was going to be good, but he's even doing better than I thought. So he's my god for the week.
I'm picking Kyria from T1 just because I think he had some incredibly good games over the past week overall. I really enjoy watching him play, and especially his Thresh play I think was particularly good, and his shot calling that we know he contributes to the team continues to be pretty solid overall. So I think Kyria, obviously Faker having kind of a resurgence in his form this year compared to last year, draws a lot of attention, and especially because Gumayushi tends to be such a flashy, mechanical, and aggressive player. But Kyria is definitely a really key part, if not, I think, the biggest part of this T1 undefeated streak that we've seen.
Yeah. I think for me, I guess deciding between top laners, the fact that Bwipo pulled out Shyvana is pretty funny. But I think we give it over to Summit because I remember specifically wanting to interview Summit really bad after that first game because down against Golden Guardians Licorice, it was the 1v1, then went back and forth. He won the 1v1 and then just took over the game there. And then just, again, as we highlighted before, showing what it's like when you're behind and still creating that much impact to allow the rest of the team to come back and play well was pretty great. So Summit, god of the week for me. Let's go inverse. So dog of the week. Oh, I think dog of the week, and it sucks, but I just don't think he's been playing well. And after having, I think, a good showing was Arrow. I think Arrow with the build.
I was going to pick Arrow.
Arrow, hadn't played really well. He came in during Super Week and gave them a little boost of what they needed that Turtle wasn't providing. And then it really felt like he hyper underperformed, poorly build, again, hitting the next instead of backing off and trying to take the
it's hard because like you don't know what comms were like during that chaotic situation. And yeah, who the fuck knows if it was actually Arrow's fault in that last game versus Team Liquid. And also I think they had some compositional problems in the game they played against Evil Geniuses as well. But Arrow doesn't seem, as much as it pains me, because obviously I have very good memories of Arrow playing very well when I was casting in Korea in the past. It just doesn't seem like he is gelling with the team or is on the same page, especially in the mid and late game. And so that's an issue. And I think you trade maybe some better ideas of how to play through bot in the early game with Arrow for probably better late game play in Wild Turtle. And it doesn't seem like there's a really good... It seems like you're compromising one way or another, which is a tough position for Immortals to be in.
Yeah, when he like misclicked the stopwatch in front of the whole enemy team.
God. Dude, and then the worst part about that was they immediately rotate top, and then the Bush Shyvana pops out, and if he had the stopwatch, like maybe he gets out of that situation. That was tough to watch.
Yeah, he was just carried by Hachani. Just say it, Monty. Hachani was the better player.
I will never say that.
Holy. Yeah, I constantly feel like poor Destiny is just in like angry face mode every time they show him on the player cam, and every time they show the lose shot. It's just Destiny.
To be fair, a lot of the problems I think with Immortal have resulted off of Destiny, like Nautilus hooking himself into really awkward situations where his team can't follow up. He's like, I'm going to hook onto this wall right now and just die, and my team can't catch up with me. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that Destiny hasn't contributed to his own share of throws for this team, but it feels like Arrow. I'm sure Arrow's very disappointed in his own performance as well, but yeah, that was rough.
Dom, who you got for our doggo of the week?
My dog of the week. So this is gonna be a little interesting because he actually had a couple okay games, but I'm gonna go Zhao Zhang because that Silas top pissed me off.
The Silas, it worked.
It did work.
I mean,
that one time. It worked that one time.
It was painful
one time. And I just didn't want to see it. Also, just like, okay, they brought back Flandre already. Just keep on going with Flandre. Like, you punished him enough. I know he fucking ran it down. You guys a world chance with that roster. Just get your shit together. Like, I'm not writing off EDG. I know everyone wants to be like, oh, EDG is washed now. Like, I see that take all over the place. It's fucking spring. They probably took more of an off season than other teams because, or like they took their off season ended later than other teams because they obviously played the latest out of any team. Just let them fucking live, man. Like, this team will be good. Trust me, Copium. This team will be good.
Yeah. It's funny to look at this roster. Not funny. It's funny that that's where my brain went. Be like, oh, EDG, they won their region. They are doing the same plan that 100 Thieves is, where they're like, okay, yeah, we'll just have that extra 6 man specifically in the top
EDG.
Yep.
EDG to 100
struggling.
You're going with that comparison, dGon. Wow.
I did.
Except they have the reverse problem where 100 Thieves someday is actually doing all right, and the rest of his team is struggling, whereas EDG's having the top lane troubles. I don't know what's with 100 Thieves, or like, why is it that someday and the rest of the team can't play well at the same time? Why is that a thing? Can't they just like they just alternate, right? Like if somebody's playing bad, the rest of the team's playing well. If somebody's playing well, the rest of the team has to play bad. Can we just have all of those things operating can they be all on or all off at the same time? That's my question.
Yeah. I mean, I think they literally will never get good at the things they're bad at. Like, it's just been too long with zero improvement that I have no faith that at some point this team is going to actually like be like, never mind, our Baron setups are clean. Because I mean, like, maybe it's just from personal experience, but like when I was a player, sometimes it was just unsolvable with like certain lineups. Like, you just need there's something that there's some strength that none of them have, which is like the ability to call setups. They'll be like, all right, we're playing for this Baron. we are going to pink ward here. We're going to be, we're going to pink ward here. Everyone needs to recall at the same time. And we're going to make sure that when they come in, we turn, or when they come in, we're going to finish. Like, no one's making that call for them. So for me, it's a little bit rough.
Not that you can read anything into this, because I think this is normal when you have younger players and you have those roster spots. But Tenacity was there at the LCS both days, and I think he has been going to the LCS both days. So just absorbing that information and learning. I'm sure he'll get more games here in the future, but someday is. Hey, if the idea was to motivate someday to play well with Tenacity, like if you wanted to put a guy behind him to motivate him, it's been working. I'll say that. Sunday's playing a lot better. It did work. All right, that was a hell of a show and a heck of a week in the LoL esports sphere. Any closing thoughts before we close out this episode, Monty?
I guess we'll be talking more about LPL next week, because LEC doesn't exist for a while. So we'll talk about cool Asian games.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm down.
Dom?
Oh, that's it.
Sweet. All right. T1 goes for history later this week. And of course, you can catch more League of Legends content and esports content here at the Dexerto YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Until then, we will see you for more jungle action next week. See ya.